correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've already posted it on the chat window as well. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome, and this is the Wednesday, July 12 meeting of the Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee. Before we get started this morning, I would like to ask our interpreter, Fabian Lodondo, to walk through how to access our interpretation services for today's meeting. Fabian, please proceed.
Good morning. Yeah, my name is Fabian Londoño, and I will be Spanish interpreter today. Mi nombre es Fabián Londoño, soy el intérprete de español esta mañana. Y vamos a dar un poco de instrucciones en cómo usar el servicio de hoy de intérprete. Aviso por parte del intérprete va a ser: para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo, y seleccione español, Spanish. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, entre paréntesis, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, o sea, silenciar audio original. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabian. I'll now ask our clerk to confirm that we have a quorum with a roll call for attendance. Francesca?
Thank you, Chair. For real estate right-of-way acquisition, Chair Frankel.
Present.
For contractor construction, Vice Chair Urso Delgado.
Here.
For biology environmental, Lorraine Alquist. Here. For finance and budgeting, Miriam Babaki. Here. Licensed engineer is absent. For CEO private sector, Sunny House.
Right here.
And licensed civil traffic engineer is absent. And that completes the roll call. We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Francesca. Again, welcome to the July meeting of the iTalk. Of course, as always, want to thank staff for all their efforts in pulling this meeting together. Just want to quickly talk about how this meeting will work. We will take in-person public comments followed by virtual public comments. If you're a member of the public here in the room, please submit a speaker slip to the clerk. And for those joining us virtually, please raise your hand at the appropriate time. Everyone should know that public participation is possible both in person and via Zoom. We have mics in the middle of the room for in-person public comments. I will now ask Michael Turlip, SANDAG's financial programming analyst, to provide a quick reminder on how today's meeting will work. Michael.
Thank you, Chair Frankel.
So we will be taking both in-person and virtual public comments, as noted on the cover page of today's meeting agenda. In addition to emailing comments, the public may also provide live comments during today's meeting. In order to provide live comments, you can join today's Zoom meeting through the link or by dialing one of the numbers from your phone that are provided on the cover page of today's meeting agenda. Join the meeting by clicking on the Join Webinar link provided in the confirmation email you'll receive upon registering. When public comments are called for on an item, on the Zoom platform, click on the raise hand icon in the Zoom toolbar. The chair will call on you by the name you provided. If you are participating by telephone, press *9. The chair will call on you by the last 3 digits of your telephone number. The instructions for providing live comments are also on the bottom of the cover page of today's meeting agenda, which can be accessed from the homepage of SANDAG's website at www.sandag.org. All comments, whether emailed or live, will be made a part of today's meeting record. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Okay, we're going to get into our agenda today, beginning with item number 1, which is public comments, communications and member comments. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to address the committee on an item not on today's agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. We do. Tim Bilaashka, you can go ahead to the podium when you're ready. And then following Tim will be the original draw on Zoom.
Good morning, committee. Thank you for having me again. And I appreciate your patience with me. Auditing is not my strong point. In fact, algebra isn't my strong point either, but I can add and subtract. So I appreciate learning from you. I mentioned 2 things not on the proposal. I actually mentioned it, I think, last month. SANDAG is a wonderful organization, and I repeat the kudos to the people I know over the last 3 years and the jobs that everybody's been doing, including public members, including the committee members, and all the thankless work that people do behind the scenes. I am a physician, OBGYN by trade, but I'm also a trained scientist. So I do a lot of work over the years looking at things. I'm not an engineer, and I'm not a politician, and I'm not a financial auditor. But I made this mention last month. I think that we're asking SANDAG as engineers to do everything. And I think the public gets confused when you don't, or when there are political conflicts. So I had raised this and I raise it again. We'll try to formalize it as I think about it. I would like to propose that SANDAG include a science committee made up of not just PhDs who are in academics doing their research on grants, but retirees in the area. We have a wealth of those, to include a high school student, perhaps, an undergraduate, a graduate student. And the purpose is to look at the engineering that goes on, the climate change that we need for new batteries. And I'll mention at 5 o'clock today, I sent to the clerk a Zoom link. There's an hour program on battery technology for people that are interested. I think it will be good. And sometimes as science eye sees things a little bit differently than politicians, and the great hard job it is to translate into projects that engineers of all sorts, including the climate aspects. So my proposal would be to have a formal science committee in-house as a resource for SANDAG for scientific issues like new batteries, like fusion energy, how soon that can come online, like transmission, like proposals that have been talked about using the cars that come back and forth to power your home at night, charging at commercially. SANDAG had a great event last week about that. And that's really all I have to say. So thanks for your time. I welcome any discussions about that I can offer. And I did send a link for the battery meeting at 5 Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bilaashka.
I think your next speaker will be the original draw. You can go ahead when you're ready.
I was actually going to say something similar to the previous speaker, but in a different way, because I feel like we're not looking at, because you have your environmental and all these things, but I think that you almost should work with science and that, but there's a problem because there's, that can be, kind of up in the air when you get into science, because it's very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but I feel that there's a lot of issues with these lithium batteries that we're not addressing. And you have people that work in the environment. So I don't know, like having a science team would be good because you could bring about other options for energy that don't include like mining for lithium. These lithium batteries are completely toxic, not only to the environment and all these animals that we're claiming that we want to protect, but they're combustible and they keep, I mean, people get into an accident and it completely just takes over the car and they have died in it. Just happened in Murrieta. Some kids died in a Tesla. And we're not addressing the fact that these batteries like don't get put out in a reasonable amount of time because it takes so much water. You'd pretty much need sand to put it out. And so, you know, as we're like promoting getting these and going into that kind of you know, use, I mean, even with our cell phones, it's like, what do we do when we have all these lithium batteries that are combustible and could potentially start a fire that would be impossible to put out? And there are other ways that you can get energy. We're just not looking into it. And, you know, there's just this push for, you know, the climate and whatnot. And in you guys doing that, you act like this is the way, but I just don't, it's contradictory to saving the planet when it's, you know, destroys the planet or it hurts lives and it's not actually safe. So you guys need to think about that and possibly look into other forms of energy that are not going to, you know, potentially cause death in people and, you know, destroy the environment that you want to protect. Because otherwise, you know, what are we doing here? If, you know, in our pursuit to do that, we're using things that are have nothing to do with protecting the environment or anything like that. And, you know, it's a lot of these cars and even things like that that we say are, you know, going to help the climate, just in making them, you know, their footprint is, you know, bigger than the lifespan of how much, you know, that they could potentially do good. I'm really tired right now, so I can't talk very well, but you know, we just need to be on across the board. If you guys talk about those things, you need to actually do it because lithium batteries and all this are no good.
Okay, that concludes the public comments.
Thank you so much. Okay, at this time, we'll move on to item number 2, which is our agency report. Mr. Dijon, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Frankel. Good morning, committee members. I'm excited to share a lot of good news since we just met last month. We learned last month that the San Diego region received $260 million from the CTC, or the California Transportation Commission, $140 million for the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry. Certainly from a financial perspective, that's great for us because it reduces the amount of bonding that we need to do. $18.5 million for the Harbor Drive 2.0 port access improvements, and $103 million to double track and replace the 80-year-old wooden bridge across Padigos Lagoon. For this amount of funding to come to the region is a really big deal, and it wouldn't be possible without all the amazing people here at SANDAG. I'd like to especially thank Susan and her grants team who are responsible for writing all these grants and receiving all this money. And obviously a special thanks to our CEO who spent countless days in Washington, D.C. and Sacramento. Certainly that's paid off. We could also not have done this without the partnerships that we have with Caltrans, NCTD, and the port. Just a note, over the last 3 years, we received over $1 billion in funding, which I think is the most amount that I can remember in my career here at SANDAG. So congratulations to the team. I'm also pleased to announce that just last month, we were successful in refinancing the $433 million. The good news is that we have finally terminated all the swaps that we have. We refinanced the 2008 variable bonds as well as the 2019, a portion of those. Very successful in the markets. We were 3 times oversubscribed, so we had over $1.2 billion in orders, which allowed us to actually even reduce interest rates even more. We had 52 investors, which is probably the most that we've ever had, a number of new, unique investors. So congratulations to Wells Fargo and our entire syndicate who did a really great job marketing those bonds. We will give you some more details on our next quarterly market update report. The portfolio will look a lot different than what it is today. Overall, a really great transaction. And just as far as some of the numbers, we saved $40 million, which equates to approximately $1.4 million a year through the end of the program, which is a net present value savings of 5.5%, which overall, again, when we were going into this, was more about de-risking our portfolio, but then interest rates happened to be right to the right place at the right time. And so we actually got some really great savings as well. We expect to close the transaction tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And again, we will give you some more details at our next quarterly market update. Another good news for the community, we recently celebrated the launch of Ride Fact Now, a new and first of its kind on-demand specialized transportation service in our region, funded through the Access for All grant program. This is something our community desperately needs, and we're happy to bring this service to the San Diego region. We continue to make progress on the airport transit connection, as well as the Blue Line and Purple Line studies. For the Purple Line study, we executed the consultant contract and released the notice to proceed. So the study will begin soon. Lastly, I'm happy to share we had a successful virtual kickoff meeting for the 2025 regional plan. The public had the opportunity to learn about the regional plan and how their comments will shape it. Chair, that concludes my comments. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dijon. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. We do. Tim Bilaashka, if you'd like to go first, and then we'll go to the original draw on Zoom.
My apologies. I just thank you for that report and the good news and the hard work, how hard that I've gone to a lot of the presentations over the last 6 months about this, and that is really fantastic. I just wanted to bring up a question. I had read an article this week, or maybe it came out of an email about the Otemisa East project, that I'm concerned that there may be a 2-year delay in the completion of that project. And my best understanding is the federal government has not coughed up the money for security at the border, and that may interfere with some of the project planning that needs to go on at this stage. So I bring this up because that may be a timely issue for SANDAG in terms of securing federal funding for that. And I hope that's something that will be expedited. Thank you.
Thank you.
The original draw, you can go ahead when you're ready.
$1 billion in 3 years, that's a lot. Kind of curious to know what it's gone to and how that's been used and if it's been used wisely. But the whole San Diego regional 2025 plan, that meeting was, I don't feel like it was very informative, because you're basically only able to, if they're saying you're having a conversation, but you're not, because they're talking, the people on the Zoom, and then you get to, you know, maybe leave some comments, but they had a special place where you had to leave it. But then there was like a chat and a place where you could ask questions. So it's like all over the place, and they're not necessarily really getting into what it was about. I don't feel like there was anything where you could offer any kind of product. It was more asking questions, because they're not telling you very clearly what's going on. And so you can't have a conversation at that point, and it kind of keeps the public from being able to, you know, really talk to the people and let you know what they want. I mean, because you're not talking, I mean, it's like we have all these things coming down the pipe and people don't even understand what's really in it. And in that meeting, they weren't like, you know, getting into the nitty gritty of it and what it really entails and how much, you know, influence we can have. And even just like with the vehicle miles travel, I mean, the charge or your RUC, the state has one coming down too. And most people don't know that. And so if the state has one and you guys want to bring one, it's like, then we're going to have two. And then in addition to everything else that you want to, you know, tax people on, I mean, just using the roads in other ways, like as having a toll road. So, I think those meetings in the future need to be something where either it's in person and, you can have like conversations with people where it's actually, a conversation, not just people kind of telling you some stuff and you have to keep digging for questions and they get to pick and choose which ones they answer. I feel like with such a big thing coming down the pipe, you guys need to be a little bit more transparent and give people more opportunity to be engaged in that. I don't know how well you're promoting it either, trying to get people to come, but people like me shouldn't have to tell people to go to that because it's important. It should be that you guys are putting it out enough that people are aware of it. And it's easy to find the information. It shouldn't be that we have to do all this searching to figure out what's going on in our community. And that's what tends to happen a lot. So I don't know, that meeting wasn't that great. And they need to be more engaged and engaging with the community. Thanks.
That concludes the public comment.
Thank you. We'll bring it back to member comments. Any questions or comments from Mr. Dijon?
I have a question about the purple line. Kind of maybe explain a little bit more who's working on it, what's the plan? Is it an initial study?
Is Sharon on the line for her to address the comment?
So as part of last month's agenda, there was the item under actions related. And one of those includes the presentation to the board on the update to the purple line. So there is a link to last month's agenda on there, but we can get back to you on the current progress.
You talking about?
Oh, she is?
Waiting for her to get the board.
Okay,
meeting?
she's on there.
Oh, okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your question. So what we're doing with the purple line right now is that there is a planning study that is being completed that's basically looking at generalized alignment, possible mode, looking at a variety of different, whether it's going to be like commuter rail or light rail or rapid bus. And so that study is being worked on through the planning department, and Jennifer Williamson is leading that study. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but who is working on, you said the consultant was selected?
Oh, yes, I believe the consultant is HNTB.
And are there TransNet funds involved in that as well at this point?
That's an excellent question. And we'll follow up on that for you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Yes, Pedro.
Andrew, first and foremost, congratulations, hopefully in advance of tomorrow's approval of, the refinancing of all of the bonds. I mean, that is historic, and believe it's the second time that you guys have done something like that in the history of SANDAG.
We actually did refinance a portion of the 2008 bonds in 2012.
Right.
But this time they're all refinanced all out. So our entire debt is fixed. It's correct.
Good. Congratulations. Dr. Bilaashka, I read the article on the UT as far as the 2-year delay on Otay Mesa East. And we had a pre-meeting for this meeting, and I asked the team at SANDAG to reach out to the Caltrans team and the SANDAG team to give us a presentation on Otay Mesa East to see what's going on and get that going. Andre, on the the airport connection, I'm glad that you're talking about that. Is moving ahead and separating it from the central mobility hub. I always have a lot of, in my head, confusion of which one is which. So looks like it's moving ahead then.
It is, and I think if you would stay tuned to our board meeting this Friday, there will be a presentation from the team.
Great.
On the entire central mobility hub, the line to the airport. So if you'd stay tuned on Friday, you'll get a real good update on that.
I will. Thank you very much. No other questions.
Thank you. Any other member comments? No? Okay,
Sure.
thank you so.
I do have an announcement if no one has. Okay.
Yes, Michelle.
So I just want to let you know that today is Michael's last day with us for the iTalk. I know, he just got here. He has been promoted to a planner here at SANDAG. So that is definitely along where he studied, and that's definitely a good move for him. We are very sad to lose him. He stepped up when we asked him to, and he took charge. And so we are very sad to lose him, but the planning department has gained a very powerful employee. So just wanted to make that announcement.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Michael, in the new role. Yeah, we look forward to seeing you there.
Do you have a replacement? Michael too?
Not yet.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, we will move on to item 3, which is our consent agenda today. There are 6 items on consent 2 requiring action by the committee. So do I have any questions or comments, any items that we wish to remove from consent?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Please.
Sunny,
Probably
please.
the same. Item 5. I have a lot of questions on there.
Okay.
That's something that should not have been on consent. Especially if we're recommending, we need to have a lot more information.
Okay. So then let's begin. Well, I think, can we approve the other items? Well, there's just approval of the minutes. So are there any other items that we wish to remove from consent today? Any other? No? Okay, seeing none. So can I get a motion on approval of the minutes first, and then we can move to item 5? A motion by Lorraine.
Motion to move.
To approve the minutes. And a second by Miriam. Okay, a motion by Lorraine and a second by Miriam to approve consent item number 3, which is approval of the meeting minutes.
Número 3.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Si puede.
Sorry. For real estate right-of-way acquisition, Chair Frankel.
Yes.
Licensed civil traffic engineer is absent. For contractor construction, Vice Chair Orso Delgado.
Yes.
For biology environmental, Lorraine Alquist. Yes. For finance and budgeting, Miriam Babaki. Yes. Licensed engineer is absent. And for CEO private sector, Sunny House.
Approved.
That motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Thank you, Francesca. Okay, so we'll move on to item 5, which is the TransNet grant programs, the biennial status update and the Smart Growth Incentive Program amendment request. Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning. I have the grants team here, and I have some representatives from National City and also the county. So we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. And I know this was not planned to be a presentation, so I think we can just jump straight into the questions, and we'll start with Sunny.
Hi there. Okay, so county, I have lots of questions about the county. Let's explain what happened, and then I can maybe ask my questions.
Morning, committee members. My name is Donald Chase. I'm a planning manager in our Long Range Planning Division in our County Department of Planning and Development Services. So yeah, I'm here today to answer any questions you have regarding the Valley Center Community Plan update. What we have been doing is basically reevaluating the scope and the process for our Community Plan Update program in consideration of the Board of Supervisors' direction on VMT, specifically vehicle miles traveled, and the changing guidelines and updates to the overall county's sustainable land use framework process. This reevaluation process could lead to new direction and other actions for the county's Community Plan Update program. Just without going into a lot of background, we've been involved since May of 2001, commenting on the 2021 regional plan. We've also done some extensive review of that plan in regards to how it would impact our programs and services, including the Valley Center Community Plan Update. And we submitted those comments back in August of 2021 on the regional plan of the draft EIR as well in October of 2021. We want to definitely continue to work with SANDAG to further understand the alignment with the county planning efforts and the RTP including places like Valley Center, communities that are not necessarily close to a lot of transit options, but are vital and important communities in our region. So looking forward, we definitely want to continue to participate in the development of the latest growth and capacity forecast, including the Series 15 model and the 2025 RTP and SCS. And as we do that, we're going to have discussions about how rural communities will fit into that program and about the possibilities of partnering with SANDAG through resources to support planning in those places. And look forward to doing what we can to increase regional housing and GHG reduction and safety efforts for those rural communities. And meanwhile, we actually are continuing some work out in Valley Center that definitely benefited from the work that we started with the community plan update. We're working on a corridor concept plan out there right now. And this planning effort is really, like I said, bifurcated from the community plan update. Well, when originally it was all one project. This effort really focuses on improving safety, enhancing the multimodal mobility options through the corridor in the north and south villages of Valley Center. So a lot of the work that was done, the community plan outreach and engagement and research and existing conditions all fed into this corridor concept plan. And we'll be continuing to work that through the rest of this year, hoping to go to the County Board of Supervisors next year for adoption.
Thank you for that explanation. The intention of the grant was not, I guess, fulfilled, right? And you continue to do the work. I see that there were billings that were not paid. Maybe you can both from SANDAG and county, maybe you can tell us what lessons learned you have from this, because that 318,000 could have gone to a different grantee and maybe we would have had some other accomplishments. So what is it that you learned from this process, both at SANDAG and county, that could be applied to future grant applications?
I think that one of the major lessons learned is to coordinate very closely on the RTP because the RTP had implications for the unincorporated regional average for VMT. And that number factors into the CEQA analysis for our community plan updates. So without having the close coordination on that in the last round in terms of aligning all those numbers over since the general plan update in 2011 through 2021, those numbers were in the place needed to get realigned in the sense that the CEQA documentation would need to account for the change in the regional average. And because of the difficulty of mitigating VMT at this time, the county is reevaluating through its sustainable land use framework process all the different options that it has to address VMT regionally. So once that process takes place, I think we'll be in a better position to restart CEQA analysis on our community plan updates, including Valley Center and Alpine Community Plan update as well. So it's all something that we're continuing to work on and reevaluate. But again, the lessons learned is to very closely coordinate with the county and SANDAG on future RTP to ensure there's room for rural communities to grow and to account for the impacts, but also the opportunities.
And I think also it's important to note, I think that, so the way that the Smart Growth Incentive Grant programs are structured, they're usually 3-year projects, which align with our regional plan at the time that they are approved. However, I think this was in a kind of a catch-22 type time where we had this pandemic, we had these low staff times, we had this prolonged supply chain. So there wasn't necessarily the staff or the resources to get these projects to the end of the line at the 3-year mark. So I think that is also something to keep into consideration. And just to let you know, I mean, further on in the attachment, there is an attachment within the attachment of the withdrawal letter. That is the quarterly progress report, the last one, and it does outline a lot of their deliverables already that were intentional as part of the approved grant. So yeah, I guess lessons learned would be, you know, like we really need to keep an eye on trying to get these projects over the line.
Well, that's kind of my, I guess, concern is this is not, you didn't find out last month that this was not happening. So throughout this process, if you were not, or if you had identified that this was not going to happen, or you were not going to get the desired product, would you have done something differently? Or would you have either, I don't know if a county asked for additional funding or pointed out to you that this was happening?
So the county did not ask for additional funding. In fact, once we were notified that there might be some decision-making that they needed to do, we gave them a 2-month schedule extension to figure it out. But the county did not invoice anything past, I think it was December or November even of last year.
Sonny, if I may, Tracy, and I don't know how to ask this question in a nice way. So I'll just ask it. And not pertaining to the county, but let's say that we get into a situation like this in the future, is there a recourse for SANDAG to say, okay, you didn't do what you were supposed to do, we want our money back?
Yes, there is in the grant agreement, there is a notation there that the SANDAG has to determine whether or not the grantee willfully misused grant funding. So that's why this county was asked to outline the deliverables that they were able to accomplish. And we then determined that it was not a misuse of grant funding.
Thank you.
Just to add on to that, if I may, sir, the grant deliverables that were completed directly fed into this corridor concept plan that we're using today. So all the existing conditions, all the original visioning work that was done with the community, the outreach and engagement specifically informed this deliverable we're still working on today, this corridor concept plan. And the other thing is that through that process, we were able to build relationships with the community, bring stakeholders together, and really talk about placemaking in the future. And it's anticipated that, again, as we pivot towards looking at things we can do for rural communities in terms of planning, that we would revisit all those deliverables, that we would use the information that was done as part of the community plan update process to inform a future completion of that process. So this is one that is not necessarily being discontinued. It's simply being on pause until there's clarity on the VMT issues and CEQA issues and a path forward, a viable path forward for the board to adopt an EIR.
Thank you. Tracy, on this, no, go ahead. No, I'm going to switch subjects.
So just one more thing on, basically what I want to know is, if this has happened and you've experienced this issue, is the regional plan realistic when it comes to rural communities and what is actually being planned for the future?
As a staff member, my job is to provide the policymakers with the information to make an informed decision. So I really can't give an opinion on that matter, but I would say that those conversations are actively ongoing at the highest levels of the county's organizational structure.
On the City of National City, what is the reason for the 4-month delay?
Okay, so the reason for the delay was they're recouping long lead times from permitting. Again, from the pandemic, Caltrans had low staff and permit turnaround, and that impacted the design, which the design of the project lasted longer than the 21 months that were originally scheduled. There was also supply chains issues with electrical equipment that was needed for the project. And then again, weather delays causing the construction staff to pivot. So they didn't have the resources to finish the project in a reasonable time. And they are just asking for a 4-month. So it's not very extensive, but.
If a local agency gets into a situation that they're not getting permit approvals from Caltrans, can SANDAG help facilitate that with Caltrans?
So in the past, we have had a grantee. It did result in a withdrawal from the Smart Growth Incentive Grant Program in the past, but we did have a grantee having problems getting a Caltrans permit because the project crossed I guess a right-of-way, freeway on-ramp, and they were unable. And then so after so long of a period trying to go back and forth and not getting any leeway, any headway forward, we also asked the SANDAG construction manager to also intervene just to kind of give some tips on how to communicate. And we actually even went to their board member who was part of their jurisdiction. And there was no way. So they ended up withdrawing. But yes, there are resources here at SANDAG that we tried to reach out to.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. No other questions.
Yes, Sunny. I'm sorry. I do, but please go ahead.
Okay, I do want to just get an explanation on right fact. I know Andre mentioned that's the one that was opened recently, right? It is inaugurated. And then you mentioned that they were on the watch list because of the high cost. Has that been resolved? Is there a different cost analysis, or have they reduced the cost?
Okay, and Allie, I'll refer that to Allie. She's the project manager for the senior mini.
Thank you.
Grants.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So Right Fact is still on the watch list, and they've been on the watch list for over 6 months now. They have been able to reduce their cost per trip, but it is still over their threshold. I believe it's about $8 over their threshold. But this is a similar scenario that I'm seeing across the grant program. So they are not unique. And so the reason why they're on the watch list are for situations out of their control, which is, as I mentioned in the discussion memo for the item, driver shortages, as well as inflation and high cost of gas prices right now. So that's the reason why they have a high cost per trip. I do want to clarify that FACT is the same grantee that received funding from the Access for All grant program that Andre mentioned earlier, but the grant that they were provided for Access for All, they started a new program called Right Fact now. So it's a different grant program and a different service.
Does this affect their ability to deliver the program with the high cost? Do they need additional funds, or how does that work?
It does impact their ability to provide trips. Yes, they have had to limit how many trips that they provide in order to extend the dollar amount. And I believe the next time we go to report on their progress, they will have already expended their funds. So they have run out of money very quickly because of these high costs.
And when is the next cycle for them to reapply? Because it's a great program,
Yes.
but it's something that may not, if it's not realistic, then what's going to happen? You give the service and then you take it away.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. And actually our board and transportation committee have already talked about this, and SANDAG is already doing something to address this. In September, we're going to the transportation committee to explore funding options for this particular grantee.
Thank you. I have several questions, starting with the county. Thank you for being here. So in taking a look at the deliverables that were provided, I mean, what was the original intent of the community plan update? Was it to facilitate additional growth in the Valley Center community?
Thanks for the question. Yes, that would be in short, to facilitate sustainable planning, land use, and build out of the vision that was detailed in the county's 2011 general plan update.
And I know there was kind of a village concept there and Valley Center and Fallbrook and a number of the unincorporated areas. And so it sounds like you got into the planning process and there was a policy change at the board with respect to VMT. Concurrently, SANDAG's RTP provided a regional per capita VMT for these areas. And that was, of course, in Valley Center, I'm sure is very high. And so it sounds like there was no support for bringing forward a community plan update with a statement of overriding considerations for a significant unavoidable VMT impact.
In short, I think your assessment is accurate.
Okay. So what is the status of, VMT, obviously mitigating for, something that's been very, very often discussed? What is the current status of the program? Are you anticipating creating some sort of mitigation banking concept or some other feasible alternative for, those rural areas where builders can pay in or otherwise feasibly mitigate their VMT impacts?
So sort of three parts to that answer. We're collaborating on all fronts with that between our climate action plan programs, our sustainable land use planning programs, and our regional planning program working with SANDAG. So that question is the question. Right now, again, as a staff member, we're providing analysis, looking into different options, various scenarios, and really excited about the level of collaboration we have with SANDAG right now to try to get at the answer to that question. Again, over the next 6 months, the next year or two, we're going to see that conversation come back. We're going to be working on this sustainable land use framework, which talks about the potential of revisiting the county's general plan and land use designations and growth priorities. So again, our 2011 general plan focused on a community development model of rural villages. And we're evaluating what that means in the context of today's GHG reductions and, a new sustainable community strategy for 2025. So again, we want to continue to collaborate, work with SANDAG and explore all options.
Does the county's current housing element and the inventory of sites include sites in Valley Center that would be potentially impacted or were a part of the community plan update?
I would need to verify that, but and come back to you with an answer on that specifically. I don't want to say yes or no to that, but I believe most of the housing inventory sites that we have are closer to transit and services. And I don't believe that Valley Center is one of the rural villages that have that, but we need to verify that before I can give you 100% answer on that question.
Thank you. And then to Tracy, I mean, it seems like there's a clawback provision in the grant agreement related to the willful misuse of funds, but there's no other circumstance in which SANDAG would be able to recover funds in the event that a grantee voluntarily withdraws. Is that accurate?
No, the grant agreement has SANDAG's clause in there, whether or not they want to withdraw, or if it was determined that on SANDAG's part for them to withdraw, it would be the same.
So so I understand. So if a grantee gets 3 years down the road and says, we now want to withdraw, the SANDAG, in order to claw back those funds, would have to demonstrate that they willfully misused funds, or are there other circumstances in which funds could be clawed back?
Correct. If they misused funds. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So, I think it's worth considering in future grant agreements if there are other circumstances in which SANDAG would be able to claw back those funds. I mean, I'm thinking of, you've spent roughly $320,000, and is there a point at which we expect the grantee to proceed, barring something outside their control, right? I mean, we certainly understand pandemic related and other related issues that are outside their control. But if you're voluntarily deciding that you're withdrawing because there was an intervening policy change, which makes sense that would occur, it seems like there should be, broader discretion for SANDAG to look at. Once you get beyond a certain point, expenditure of public funds, we can actually take a look at how we may recover, because as Sunny mentioned, those funds could have been used, for some other programs. I know there were a lot of other folks that applied. So
Yes. Yeah. And also to the point as well is the 10% retention. So our grantees, when they invoice, we take 10% for their end deliverables. So the 10% withdrawal, with the 10% retention, we still keep, and it goes back into the next call for projects for the smart growth incentive. So that the 300,000 that's on the one solution, that's in the attachment, the PO grant balance, I believe that also, that takes into effect the 10%. So the county actually received 10% less than that.
Understood. Thank you, Tracy. Just one final question related to FACT. Seems like the cost per trip, metric that we're utilizing, this particular grantee has been on the watch list for a very long, 6 months. It's not a very long time, but at what point if they remain on the watch list, is there something else that happens? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Could they remain on the watch list indefinitely?
This was a unique scenario where these were kind of factors outside of their control. So we went to the transportation committee and we asked if we could waive them being penalized for being on the watch list. I don't anticipate that we'll continue to waive for such a long time. As it so happens, they've already that this grant is over, basically. April. This is an older report, so I know that they're out of funds now. But I know that we are considering as a program-wide policy to kind of change our monitoring efforts to make it so that a cost per trip or is not so penalizing when there are factors outside of the grantee's control. So we are considering updating our monitoring checklist for evaluating grantees, which we do monitoring checklists annually for our grantees. But we will continue the watch list as far as what I know now. Thanks.
That makes sense. Thank you. Thank you, Allie. Okay, I don't have any other questions. Sunny, yes.
Well, I will like to make a motion, but before I do that, I would like to know, Tracy, what is the process in looking into the grant application and identifying other situations where, in this case, where a grantee does voluntarily withdraw? What are the ways of maybe recovering the money, what's under certain circumstances, even if it was not willful misconduct, that there are consequences in having to go through this process, get the money, and then not deliver. So would you be able to look into that, or is this a board policy or a board action? What would be the process?
Well, I would say the process would be more of an internal finance process. I don't think the policy committees or the boards would probably need to have to approve us asking for it, because we do have it in our agreement that the grantees do sign. So I think that would be the process. It's just an internal financial thing.
Okay, so then I would like to make a motion to approve this recommendation to go to the next level. However, with the criteria that the SANDAG needs to look into this a little bit more and maybe report back on what other circumstances would enable SANDAG to get the money back. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's my motion.
Thank you, Sunny. Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Sunny and a second by Pedro. Any final discussion on this? No? Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thanks, Chair. We do have public comment on this item.
Oh,
We could take
excuse
that
me.
before the vote.
Thank you, Francesca.
Sure. The original draw, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. I was like, what's going on? Because I thought we could comment on consent. That was very weird. As far as all this goes with this, like, I don't understand why you're punishing the person getting the grant when it's the board of supervisors changing their policies, which happens quite a lot. And that keeps projects from moving forward because you can't be mid-project and then all of a sudden, have these new regulations or changes come and you have to mitigate that and still get your project done on time. So there's factor. It's not as though they're willfully doing something or you should be going after the board of supervisors or holding them accountable for their what they're doing in changing all of this stuff, keeping people from being able to do that. And this is definitely like the regional plan is not realistic for rural communities, and you can tell because of this, because there is no transit out there. It's intentional. You guys talk about going out there, but then if people can't even build out there because of the VMT BS that's being put down on every builder, nothing's going to get done. But that's intentional because you guys don't want us driving. Even SANDAG said before, it doesn't matter if we go to EV electric vehicles, that regardless, you have to get people to drive less. And so you're like punishing these people who want to do a project when before it was to build up those communities. Now it's like they have all of these roadblocks that keep them from even doing a plan that they intended to do. And so for you to sit here and be like saying that they are not delivering when it's not, like, I would voluntarily withdraw too, because at that point they probably need way more money just to even get all of this like stuff done just to complete the project. So what's the point of even having the grant at that point, or saying that you're going to be able to complete it if they can't? I think it's actually better for them to withdraw, knowing that they're up against. So, when we sit here and, do all these things and talk about this regional plan that's coming up, you're going to be leaving rural communities out of this. And this is telling in this, what these people have been saying. So, you need to be either telling people the truth and telling them that, these vehicle miles traveled is going to keep you in a 15-minute city, basically. You're not going to be able to travel. But let's not tell people that we're going to build out in these communities and do all of these things when there's all this stuff set out to make sure that that never happens. And most people don't even know about this stuff. Like, they don't know that that's what's keeping, projects from being built. So it's like we talk about wanting to help homelessness or provide housing, but how is that possible when you set up all of these things that make it impossible to do because you're trying to save the planet, and all of these vehicle miles traveled isn't going to put a dent in it, even if all people stop driving.
Thank you. That concludes the public commenters.
I believe Dr. Bosch would like to make a comment.
My apologies. We don't have any cards here. I'd like to offer a personal perspective. A meeting, I think it was about a year ago. The county engineers produced a plan in Valley Center. I think it was Valley Center Road, goes north-south by the new building over there, for 4 roundabouts to try to address some of these issues of climate change and VMT. And they did an exceptional job from my perspective with the engineering. Now, I just wind up at these meetings. I don't know how that happens, but I felt like I was going into mortal combat at that planning commission meeting. The vindictiveness, the challenges, the attacks, and the non-engineering, non-science that was issued by the members at the local community. My observation, my opinion is they don't want anything to change, except they want their grocery store, they want their McDonald's, they want their road the way they want it, the way it's always been. You put lights, you put cross streets, and then people get killed at 4 a.m. coming out because the speeders aren't watching. So I don't even know the progress of that. It was really an exceptional engineering job from my perspective. I don't think the SANDAG committees appreciate the vindictiveness and the anger at the East County people I talk to, particularly the unincorporated, and the lack of information that they have about how these things might be helpful and being constructive towards meeting their needs for these. And so my sympathies go out to SANDAG in particular, sort of mitigating, a big brood of people that have all different directions and different communication skills. That's something that maybe needs to be factored into this in terms of finding a little better outreach for the rural communities. They feel like they're under attack. Of course, they moved off the coast to go there to get away from all this stuff, in my opinion. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bilaashka. Okay, well, that concludes our consent agenda today. Thank you, Tracy, and to all of you, for
Thank you.
Chair, I believe we need to do a roll call on the vote.
Yes, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, we had a motion and a second on a recommendation of approval of item number 5, subject to ongoing consultation about amendments to the grant agreement related to circumstances in which grant funds could be recovered. So we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. For real estate right of acquisition, Chair Frankel.
Yes.
Licensed civil traffic engineer is absent. For contractor construction, Vice Chair Urso Delgado.
Yes.
For biology environmental, Lorraine Alquist.
Yes.
For finance and budgeting, Miriam Babaki.
Not sure.
I abstain. And for licensed engineer is absent. And for CEO private sector, Sunny House.
Yes.
And that motion does pass with 4 yeses and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Francesca. Okay, we will move into our report agenda at this time, beginning with item number 9. We are pleased to welcome Luca Zappiello with the City of National City to provide our local agency report. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair, community members. Pleasure to be here today. My name is Luca Zappiello. I'm an associate engineer at City of National City at the Engineering and Public Works Department. And I'm mostly involved in the design, construction overview, reporting phases for the capital improvement project at the city. In today's presentation, I'm going to provide an overview on how the city uses the TransNet fund. Just to provide a quick overview of the city has a population of approximately 57,000 people, and is the second oldest city in the county. The majority of the land at the city has been developed, and so we have these new residential projects with multiple stories and several hundreds of units that are increasing the density. And to support these kind of improvements, the city is prioritizing the CIP project that includes the bike lane, lightings, pedestrian enhancements, parking, and other mobility options. As you can see on these opening slides, you can see a new welcome gateway sign at the pedestrian bridge that is located in the downtown of National City. The sign was part of the downtown wayfinding and community gateway project that was funded by the Smart Growth Incentive Program for a total fund of $825,000. Okay, next slide, please. In today's presentation, we are going to discuss about the TransNet fund, the 6-year summary budget, the TransNet local and the streets and road capital projects. And I'm going to provide a quick overview of 3 projects that receive the TransNet Smart Growth Incentive funding. In particular, it's going to be the Sweetwater Road protected bike lanes that we requested a 4-month extension in the previous item, the National City Boulevard Bikeway, and the Roosevelt Avenue Corridor Smart Growth Revitalization Plan. Next slide, please. Staff basically works with the elected officials to identify the capital improvement projects in a 5-year budgeting in order to identify the city's priorities and the financial plans. The city's 5-year CIP projects approximately 73 million on average of 15 projects per year on a total cost of 15 millions. Basically, we try to program the SANDAG, the funding that we receive from SANDAG, but always we have other funding sources that we try to implement in order to build this kind of priority projects. On May 16 of this year, the City Council basically approved the list of projects that are going to receive the local street and roadway program for a total cost of $1.52 million for the fiscal year 24. And as you can see from the slide, this is a list of 4 fiscal years on the 6-year summary budget. You can see that the budget on the from this funding increased from 1 million to 1.5 million in the last several years. Next slide. Thank you. In this slide shows the type of projects that we use for the local streets and roadway fundings. We have the street resurfacing project with ADA improvements. We have traffic signal install and upgrades projects. We have a citywide safe flight to school projects, and we have the slurry seal projects. We comply with the TransNet ordinance, the 70-30, basically to have the 70% in congestion relief projects and the 30 or less in rehabilitation and maintenance projects. Next slide. Now I'm going to provide a quick overview of the 3 projects that receive the TransNet fundings, in particular for the Smart Growth Incentive Program. This is the Sweetwater Road Bikeway that basically this project is under construction and we requested a 4-month extension for complete constructions. And this project provides approximately 1 mile of Class 2 protected bikeway along Sweetwater Road. And you can see on purple, there is a Plaza Bonita Road that is going to be a Class 1 protected bikeway. They have other features, like you can see is the road diet, bicycle intersection improvements, and pedestrian enhancements. This is a very important project since it's going to link the city to the city bike network to the regional network. You can see in yellow, there is the Sweetwater River Bike Path. And this goes from Plaza Bonita to the Marina, Pier 32 Marina that is located on at I-5. And this is going to be linked to the new project that is under design, and hopefully in the construction next year. That is going to be the Bayshore Bikeway Segment 5. That is going link with the Bayshore Bikeway with the City of San Diego and the Bayshore Bikeway of City of Chula Vista as well. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the project that was completed last year. This is a National City Boulevard Bikeway project that involved 0.2 miles on 33rd Street and a half mile of Class 2 bike lane on a between the 33 Road Street and the southern border of Chula Vista on National City Boulevard. And the kind of feature is, as you can see from the screen, is going to provide traffic calming, bike pedestrian improvements, and freeway on-off ramp improvements for for bikes and pedestrians, and lightings. This is basically improve the safety for pedestrian and biking. Next slide, please. And this is, and the third project, the last project, is the Roosevelt Avenue Corridor Smart Growth Revitalization Plan. This project basically received an award, this American Public Work Association Award for of San Diego. This is 2022 Transportation Project of the Year, from a 2 to 5 million category. This project provides several kind of improvements, as you can see on the slide, and is located where the city is allowing the high density. Basically, we have a project that is under design, almost the completion of the design, that is proposing new apartment complex in this area with 22 stories and mixed-use building with 400 units. That is going to become a taller high-rise in the South County. This project basically is going connected to next phase, that is the 8th Street and Roosevelt Avenue Active Transportation Corridor project that is currently under design, hopefully under construction next year. And that was awarded on a 5.5 million by the TransNet Active Transportation Grant Program. That going to provide improvement for the pedestrian, bicyclists, and the neighborhood electrical vehicle shuttle routes, connecting the naval base, the trolley station, 8th Street, and in the downtown and National City. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is just another slide just showing some photos of this project that was completed last year. You can see the improvements at you can see the bike lane, you can see the bulb outs at intersection. Next slide. Thank you. This is concluding my presentation. Let me know if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zappiello, for being here. We always appreciate hearing from local member agencies and you taking the time. We know you guys are busy, so thank you so much. Do we have any public comments on this item?
Thank you, we do. The original draw, you can go ahead.
I feel like, am I the only one that thinks it's weird that we're using funds from people driving and it doesn't go back to that? We're using it for basically the drivers are paying for people to bike and get them all this stuff. And, you know, the only thing you're really adding for a driver is like a parking spot. And what's happening with parking now is that we're having to pay for that. So it's like, even though you would add that and we paid for it, we're going to have to pay for it again. And then you're adding EV shuttle routes. So all the drivers that are, you know, you're getting this money from, I'm just confused as to why it doesn't go to providing more roads. Actually, I'm not. I know why. It's because you guys don't want people driving, and that's why you're doing these densely populated areas. That's why there's the incentives, but there's also the de-incentivizing people by, you know, way of charging them for driving and stuff like that. But even when that road usage charge comes down the pipe, where's that going to go? It's going to go towards this type of stuff, not ever for the roads to help people to expand them, to give them, because there would be less traffic if the roads were larger. You act like if the roads are bigger, then there'll be more drivers. Well, if there's, I mean, there's always going to be at some point, because kids start driving and stuff. But it doesn't mean that all of a sudden, all these people that don't have a car are going to drive. It's just going to mean there's less traffic. But you're providing, like, why aren't you charging then people to ride their bike so that they can provide their own, means by way of infrastructure for them to use it? Instead, you're using the drivers and you're punishing us for driving, basically. And all this is just going towards things that don't even, it's quite ridiculous. And I don't understand. I mean, and some of you are asking questions, even like on the other thing, does this, like with the rural areas and whatnot and building out there, like all of this stuff is a bigger plan. It's a bigger plan to put people in the densely populated areas like that you talk about, and road diets. So you're like talking about a road diet, and that's paid by the drivers. So it's like, and most of the drivers don't know that basically we're funding our own demise in driving, because it's going towards all these other projects. And people act, do you guys not see that? Do you know that's what you're doing? Or are you, it's just very odd to me that we can talk like this. And the first things that you talk about are like bikes and pedestrians and how we're funding that. But they're not having to pay for anything. It's because you want to incentivize them to do it. But you're punishing people for driving, and it's just ridiculous.
That concludes the public comments.
My apologies. I just wanted to mention it's really neat when these projects get finished, and as a pedestrian or just an observer on them, they're aesthetically pleasing. So they've actually improved the neighborhood. And so those designs and the work I really like. One thing I wanted to mention, I live near the Solana Beach station. I could ride my bicycle if I use the trains there. And there's a few lockers for bicycles. But one of the things I'm not sure we're thinking about is if I have an e-bike or a bicycle or an e-skate, I may want to store that. And there's logistical problems, but I hope that's being thought about in terms of getting people to use these kind of transportation. The other thing is that bicycles, to my knowledge, don't contribute to pollution and are healthy for people, and cars do. And so part of the effort is to improve not just one thing about transportation, but how it integrates with the entire plans for our neighborhoods and for our county. And pedestrians and bicyclists are being killed on the road. And I take that a high priority as a physician. So I implore you continue this effort, and thanks for this design.
Thank you, Dr. Bilash. Okay, comments or questions from committee members? No?
Just wanted to congratulate you on winning your awards, and thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, also just wanted to say that given its relative size, National City's done a fantastic job leveraging the Smart Growth Incentive Program funds. There's lots of improvements. I've walked on Roosevelt prior to these improvements and subsequent to the improvements, and it really makes a tremendous difference in the experience of residents there. And I know the council members that I've spoken to feel the same way. So thank you for all your efforts. Okay, we'll move on to item number 10 today, which is the annual selection of the ITALK chair and vice chair. And Michael will be presenting this item.
Good morning again, everybody. How's it going? So the first off, I'd like to say thank you, Michelle, for the announcement. I appreciated that. And thank you, everybody, for allowing me to work with you. It's been great. So the ITALK bylaws call for the selection of a committee chair and vice chair by the majority vote of the committee on an annual basis. The selection is to be made at the first regular meeting of the SANDAG fiscal year. An overview of the annual ITALK chair and vice chair selection process was provided to you at your June 14th meeting. Today, we're asking the committee to approve the selection of a chair and vice chair for FY 2024. The new ITALK chair is expected to lead the next scheduled meeting on September 14th, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Okay, so we'll bring it back to committee members for discussion. And obviously we are in membership wise, we're in a little bit of a unique situation in that we have two wonderful newer members. Obviously, Miriam has lots of experience and has been here before, but this is more of her recent time here. And of course, we have a vacancy as well. So within that context, I'd like to open it up for any discussion on the selection of chair or vice chair. Pedro.
I'll go ahead. I think you're doing a wonderful job. And I would propose that you stay on as our chair. And I would gladly continue as vice chair.
Is that a motion?
I guess so.
If it is, I second that. I think both of you are doing great. It would be great to give our new members opportunities and have them step up. There are committees, there are other things that are happening in the year to get you ready. So for now, I think it's best to continue as we have with Jonathan as chair and Pedro as vice chair. And of course, we're all here to support you. So
thank you, Sunny. Okay, well, I appreciate the vote of confidence and given where we are, would be happy to continue serving as chair for another year in the hopes of somebody next year being able to rotate into the position. I know that that's historically been the case, but we are at a kind of a unique moment with our membership now. So we'd be happy to continue serving for another year. So I think we have a motion by Pedro and a second by Sunny. So Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Oh, excuse me. I need to see if there are any public comments on this item. I apologize.
Thank you very much. I do not see any hands from the public on this item.
Okay, excellent. Then Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
For real estate right-of-way acquisition, Chair Frankel.
Yes.
Licensed civil traffic engineer is absent. For contractor construction, Vice Chair Urso Delgado.
Yes.
For biology environmental, Lorraine Alquist.
Yes.
For finance budgeting, Miriam Babaki.
Yes.
For licensed engineer is absent. And for CEO private sector, Sunny House.
yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with those members present.
All right, thank you so much. So we will move on to item number 11. And this is our 2023 State of the Commute Subcommittee. And Grace Mino is here. Good morning, Grace.
Good morning, ITALK committee members. Thank you for letting me and my colleague Connor Voss present to you at our June 14th meeting for the State of the Commute Dashboard. That was for the year 2022. And I just wanted to thank the previous committee members, subcommittee members, which was Vice Chair Pedro Delgado Pedro Urso Delgado, sorry, I can't see that far. And then, and also it was the other committee members, which was Les Hopper, and then former committee member Stuart Halpern. And so asking you today for the ITALK to appoint no more than 3 ITALK members to serve on the 2023 State of the Commute Subcommittee as we further develop the dashboard and add in items.
Thank you so much, Grace. Okay, any committee member discussion? Well, first, Madam Clerk, I'll go to public comment. Are there any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. We have no public comments on this item.
Okay, great. So we'll bring it back to committee members. The State of the Commute report our last meeting was excellent. There's just a lot of super interesting data points that they collect. So I think it's a really great opportunity for any of the new members that are interested in kind of understanding how a subcommittee functions, if you're would be so inclined. So with that, I'll turn it over to committee members and see if they have any interest in serving on the subcommittee.
What is the time commitment?
Probably about 8 to 10 hours in the year. We'll be collecting this year's data. We'll ask to schedule a meeting with the subcommittee probably early in the first quarter of next year, between maybe March of 2024. We'll give you the dashboard ahead of time to review, and then we'll discuss any feedback that you have, and then we'll bring it to the ITALK before the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, I'm interested.
Okay, so Miriam is interested. We have no more than 3. And Does it require 3, Grace, or could you have less than 3?
Historically, it's always been 3,
Always
but
been
I know
3.
we're in a unique situation with having not a fully staffed committee. So I don't know the rules though, like for subcommittees. Can subcommittees be less than 3, Michelle?
Yeah, they can be less than 3, but we would try to get 3 because we want to, you know, as many eyes as we can on this data. Yeah.
I would be willing to continue
Okay.
on it. And I would also would like to nominate Les for it.
That is not here.
Not here. If that's appropriate.
Beware
do
of
that.
missing meetings. Okay. We could certainly do that. So Mariam, Pedro, and
Les.
And if he does not wish to do that, I assume that we could make adjustments at that time. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mariam, Pedro, and Les to the State of the Commute Subcommittee.
I'll second that.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. For real estate right-of-way acquisition, Chair Frankel.
Yes.
Licensed civil traffic engineer is absent. For contractor construction, Vice Chair Urso Delgado.
Yes.
For biology environmental, Lorraine Alquist.
Yes.
For finance and budgeting, Miriam Babaki.
Yes.
Licensed engineer is absent. And for CEO private sector, Sunny House.
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Thank you, Francesca. Okay, we'll move on to item 13, which is a fiscal year 2023 TransNet Fiscal and Compliance Audit Agreed Upon Procedures, or AUP.
Sorry, Chair. The next item is the ITALK annual report.
Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead. I skipped item 12. I was thinking we were ahead of schedule, but then alas, so close. Falls. Sorry for the foot fault there, Michael. We are, of course, going to go to item 12, which is the 2023 ITALK annual report. And Michael is going to be presenting this item.
Good morning again, everybody. I'm excited to be back here again today to present the final draft of the 2023 ITALK annual report. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to the committee for all your helpful comments during the development process of the annual report. And I'd also like to give a special thanks to all the staff who are instrumental in putting this report together. So in June, the ITALK had a chance to review a draft of the annual report, and then you guys gave direction as to what you guys would like to see changed. The main recommendation was to change the title of the section covering the FY 2024 Triennial Performance Audit Scope of Work, and you wanted it to explicitly state that it is a draft and that it is subject to change. So we made that change. There have also been a few other minor updates to some information in the annual report. In the fiscal and compliance audit section, we have updated some information regarding the maintenance of effort for local streets and road funds. And in the how to get involved section, we've updated some data that has shown the progress we've made on the 48 major capital construction projects. And besides that, all other changes have just been grammatical or just minor wordsmithing. So today, what we're asking from the committee is to please approve of this final draft of the 2023 ITALK annual report. If approved, the ITALK chair and staff will bring the annual report to the board of directors in October. So thank you. That concludes my presentation. We're open to any questions the committee may have.
Thank you so much. Michael, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. No public comments on this item.
Okay, we'll bring it back to committee members. We had a longer discussion last month about this. Thank you, Michael, for making these edits. I think this looks really great. I really enjoyed the format, and I think it's informative. So do I have a motion?
Well, we were not part of it, but I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have a motion to approve the annual report by Miriam with a second by Lorraine. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. For real estate right-of-way acquisition, Chair Frankel.
Yes.
Licensed civil traffic engineer is absent. For contractor construction, Vice Chair Urso Delgado.
Yes.
For biology environmental, Lorraine Alquist.
Yes.
For finance and budgeting, Miriam Babaki.
Yes.
Licensed engineers absent, and for CEO private sector, Sunny House.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Thank you so much, Michael, for all your work on the annual report. We appreciate it. Okay, and right on time to the minute. Now we will move to item 13. Again, the TransNet Fiscal and Compliance Audit, AUP. Marcus will be presenting this item alongside our team from Davis FAR. Marcus.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and members of the iTalk. I'm Marcus Pasquale with the Finance Department, and will be presenting this item along with Shannon Ayala, who is a partner at Davis FAR LLP, for our proposed agreed upon procedures for the fiscal year 2023 TransNet fiscal and compliance audits. So at the May 11 iTalk meeting, we appointed the members of the audit subcommittee. Those members are Les Hopper and Sunny House. Subsequent to appointing these members, the members worked with our independent auditor, Davis FAR LLP, on any changes and recommendations to the prior year AUP. So before turning it over to Shannon, I would like to take this opportunity to formally introduce her to the iTalk. We are all familiar with Jennifer, as she had been taking the lead on the TransNet audits, but with Davis FAR being awarded the audit RFP for both our SANDAG and TransNet audit, Jennifer will be moving over to the SANDAG audit side, and Shannon will be taking over the TransNet AUPs. So welcome, Shannon, and we look forward to working with you in the coming years. So I will now turn it over to Shannon, and she will walk us through the major changes from prior year procedures.
Thank you, Marcus. Good morning, Chair and committee members. I wanted to take a little moment to introduce myself and expand on Marcus's introduction. As he mentioned, I will be the new partner on the TransNet engagement. I am the partner in charge of the Davis FAR office in Carlsbad, so you're getting a local for the next few years. I have spent my entire career in local government, and I previously worked on the SANDAG financial statement audit many years ago, as well as the TransNet AUPs and TDA audits. So as Marcus mentioned, we are in the planning stages for the fiscal year 2023 agreed upon procedures for the 24 agencies that receive TransNet funding. And we are seeking your approval of the procedures at this meeting. Our proposed approach for 2023 is the same as the prior year, with two exceptions. The dates and the procedures have been updated to reflect the new fiscal year. And then we also included an additional procedure addressing agencies with indirect costs exceeding 10% of total TransNet expenditures. In cases where indirect costs are higher than 10%, we will inquire with the recipient agency to obtain an explanation on why the rates are high, and we will include their explanation in the report. The iTalk Fiscal and Compliance Audit Subcommittee received the draft procedures for review on June 23rd and did not have any suggested changes to the procedures as a result of their review. I will now turn it back over to Marcus for the next steps.
Thank you, Shannon. I will now be going over the next steps. Upon approval of the fiscal year 2023 TransNet agreed upon procedures, the audit firm Davis FAR LLP will begin the review of all local agencies that receive TransNet funding. And this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcus, and welcome, Shannon. We look forward to working with you as well. Glad that you're here in Carlsbad. That's awesome. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. No public comments on this item.
Okay, we'll bring it back to committee members for comments or questions about the agreed upon procedures. No? Okay. Seeing none, this is an item that requests our approval. So I would like to move we approve the 2023 TransNet Fiscal and Compliance Audit agreed upon procedures as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Please call the roll.
Thank you. For real estate right-of-way acquisition, Chair Frankel.
Yes.
For licensed civil traffic engineer, a licensed civil traffic engineer is absent. For contractor construction, Vice Chair Ursa Delgado.
Yes.
For biology environmental, Lorraine Alquist.
Yes.
For finance and budgeting, Miriam Babaki.
Yes.
For licensed engineer is absent. And for CEO private sector, Sunny House.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Thank you. Okay, we will stay on the same theme here. Just jumping back a fiscal year. We will now hear about the fiscal year 2022 TransNet fiscal and compliance audits, and we'll hear from Marcus once again. Marcus.
Thank you, Chair. So in this item, we will be presenting the final results of the fiscal year 2022 TransNet fiscal and compliance audits for your acceptance. Jennifer Farr, who is a partner at Davis Farr LLP, will summarize the stages and approvals that led up to this point, and will also summarize the findings from the draft reports. Once Jennifer is done, I will go over the substantial changes. Actually, Jennifer will go over the substantial changes between the draft and final reports. And I will then ask the committee to accept the item after answering any questions. So I will now turn it over to Jennifer.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. And now that we are in the final stage of the process for the 2022 procedures, I wanted to briefly walk you through the timeline for these procedures. Last July, the ITALK Audit Subcommittee was provided with the proposed procedures for fiscal year 22. And at the September ITALK meeting, those procedures were approved. The Davis Farr team scheduled and performed the procedures for the 24 agencies from the time period of October of 2022 through January of 2023. The draft reports were presented to ITALK on April 12th, along with the details of noncompliance with any of the requirements. On May 5th, the Regional Transportation Committee recommended the approval of certain requests from agencies that did not meet the requirements. And then on May 26th, the SANDAG board approved those requests. And so this is the final stage where ITALK is now accepting the final reports for release and issuance. I did want to point out that there were two notable changes since the last time this committee reviewed the reports. One of them is for the city of San Marcos. The report has been updated to include the approved extension to make up the maintenance of effort deficit by June 30, 2025. And the second one relates to the city of Poway. The city was able to provide sufficient eligible expenditures to resolve the RCTIP 7-year expenditure requirements. So those are the only two changes of any significance since the last time that you saw the report. I will now turn it back over to Marcus for the recommendation.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I will now state our recommended action. ITALK is asked to accept the final fiscal year 2022 TransNet fiscal and compliance audit reports prepared by the independent auditing firm Davis Farr LLP in accordance with the agreed upon procedures so that the final audit reports may be issued. And this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. No public comments.
Okay, so we'll bring it back to committee members for questions or comments for Marcus or Davis Farr.
I have no comments, but I would like to move to approve.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Sunny. We have a second. Pedro?
I'll second that.
Make a motion by, okay, we have a motion by Sunny and a second by Pedro to accept the 2022 audit results. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. For real estate right-of-way acquisition, Chair Frankel.
Yes.
Licensed civil traffic engineer is absent. For contractor construction, Vice Chair Ursa Delgado.
Yes.
For biology environmental, Lorraine Alquist.
Yes.
For finance and budgeting, Miriam Babaki.
Yes.
Licensed engineer is absent. And for CEO private sector, Sunny House.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Marcus. So we'll move on to item number 15, which is our Regional Active Transportation Program Awards and the fiscal year 2024 program budget amendment. And this item will be presented by Mr. Kluth.
Good morning. For that. So some good news on the funding front. SANDAG was awarded over $27.6 million from the Active Transportation Program through the state. Most of those in this report or reporting in this report are from the local portion of the ATP program. There is an addendum in there to the state portion where we got additional funds. I'll go through that in a little more detail, but not too much detail as we roll through the projects. So this is funding that's going into our early action program, the $200 million initial investment from our board back in 2013. You've received a couple of other reports recently on the progress and status of those projects. So another thing that we keep bringing up on these is the importance of how the TransNet funds have been leveraged. So fortunately, the proportion of funding in the program keeps going up and up for the leverage funding. So to date, in the program, the 44% of our expenditures and funds programmed are from TransNet, while we now have 56% funding from outside resources, local, state, and other local resources. So these projects were approved, the local and the state, the local regional portion of the state ATP program was taken to the California Transportation Commission in late June and was approved. So we are now back to incorporate those funds into our budget, and budget amendments are shown. Well, actually, we do have, there's attachment 2 was supposed to have all of the red lines for the CAPs. We had a little mix up on our agenda production, so I apologize for that. But if you would like a copy of that today, I have some of those here. We'll be reposting that as soon as possible to make sure everyone else in the public can see the changes that are being made to each CIP. So we had 6 projects that were successful. I'll just kind of briefly go down the list. Our Robinson Bikeway got $5.17 million for construction, so that's very exciting. That project is a key connector. It's a very small project, but it connects our entire uptown network to the entire North Park Mid-City network. So all those projects together will be 25 miles of connected, protected, and traffic calm bikeway. So we're really excited about that one. We got an additional 6.74. So for the Howard Avenue Bikeway project, we had an initial 1.39 million from the state competition, and they advised us to hang tight. That was a partial grant award. Hang tight, and eventually the rest would shake loose, and they're right. We're very happy it did. So we're adding another 6.74 million to the initial 1.39 for construction on Howard, which should be going out to bid next spring. And then next up was 982,000 for additional environmental work and final design for Uptown, Mission Hills, and Old Town. Connection to Old Town, and then western part of University. at the end of our Washington Avenue project or Washington Street project. So will continue filling in the network in Uptown. And then the Bayshore Bikeway, Barrio Logan Phase 2, some additional work that was needed, working with the CPUC on some railroad safety improvements that needed to be integrated into the project. So that's another 6.34 from the local ATP. So very fortunate to get that. And then of note is we are transferring 3.15 million of TransNet funding out of the Bayshore Bikeway Phase 1 as matching and to complete that work. And then next up is 2 new projects. They're still part of the early action program network. First one is Bayshore to Imperial, 4.61 million for preliminary engineering and some design work and outreach for 7.9 miles connecting the end of our Imperial Bikeway down through City of San Diego, National City, and Chula Vista, connecting to the Bayshore Bikeway down there in Chula Vista. So again, completing a little more of the network. And then last up is the 3.82 million for preliminary engineering and environmental for PACTAC, the Pacific Highway Coastal Rail Trail portion, 5.5 miles from Grape Street up to SeaWorld Drive. So that's a summary of the grants and the projects that they'll be funding. So next up, pending your recommendation, the budget amendment will go through to the Transportation Committee and subsequently to the Board of Directors later this month for approval and incorporation into the annual budget. And be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Chris. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. We do have the original draw. You can go ahead when you're ready.
Again, here, we're talking about, leveraging funds and stuff, but this is all going toward, and I get you guys got to do your active transportation, but you're using people who drive to pay for that. And if you used bikers and you charged bikers and all that money that you took from them didn't go towards putting more bike lanes and more access for them to get all over the place, and it went to drivers, they'd be pretty pissed off because they would say, why are we paying for that when it's always supposed to be going for what it is coming from? And so you guys are taking this and you're actually making less opportunities for people to drive, taking away parking spots, giving road diets, all of that stuff. And then you're giving the bikers all of this. Well, yeah, everybody pollutes. Okay. And it doesn't matter if you get everybody to stop driving. The planet is self-healing. All of this climate stuff is BS. And if people are worried about bikers being hit, because cars get hit too. I was hit by a drunk driver who was high on PCP. It happens. It came into my lane and hit me head on. But why are we having bikers sit in, be in the roadways then and ride with buses? So it's like, you can't have the best of both worlds and say that like cars are killing people and then have buses and bikes and cars all ride on the same thing and, blame, only one side of it. I feel like you guys are trying to, put this whole like stigma upon driving and just this has to be bad. And we have to just, either walk or bike, but then you don't even think about like elderly and people who are in like wheelchairs or people that can't walk. I mean, or bike. So you guys are spending the money that it's just ridiculous. And I just don't understand how you can continue to do this when there's money that you can get funds from other things. And that money should be going to helping the roads. And our roads are in terrible conditions. They're horrible and it's intentional because you're taking the money that's supposed to go to that and giving it to all these other people and the bikers and all this. And it's like, it's just ridiculous because you shouldn't be punished. That would mean that like we should start putting meters on each other and seeing who's breathing more fresh air or, flatulating more and charge them because it's inequitable. I mean, you know, cars had come and it was like, it's like a way of life. And now people are being told like, how dare you do that? So I don't know. This is just ridiculous. I'm done.
That concludes the public comments on this item.
Thank you. Okay, we'll bring it back to committee members. Any questions or comments for Chris? Yes, Miriam.
I have a question. Just looking at the list, I noticed that a lot of these projects, almost all of them, the 5 that got the grants were like South County projects. I don't see anything north of 8. Any particular reason they were more successful maybe than the others, or were the others submitted?
We submitted for Inland Rail Trail and Vista in the last round at the state level of the ATP. So when we were successful in that. So these are the next projects on the list that we're working on. And for North County, we're focusing on finishing the Inland Rail Trail, which is a pretty big project. So it's kind of the timing on the spatial geospatial distribution.
Yes, Pedro.
A couple of questions, Chris. On the, I guess the individual funding sheets for each individual project, I'm assuming that what's in red is the change?
Yes.
And that's the funding that's coming in?
Let's see.
Just to clarify, the what's in red is what was the budget before,
The old.
and what's in black is what it will be with your approval. Going
Okay,
forward. So the crossed out is what the budget was before.
okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
For me personally, it would be very helpful to see this presentation a little bit differently when you actually are talking about each one of these individual sheets so that I can see what's going on. I'm very much a visual person, so I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm not comprehending it.
I have a question, kind of more of it might be obvious, but more point of clarification. I see that in these projects, some of them used to say ready to advertise TBD, and now they have dates. And then some are still TBD. I'm assuming that means you have, first of all, you're shifting money around to maybe projects that are more ready to go because some had funding and now they don't, or they were TBD. They had funding. So is that what it is when you say TBD means you don't have the funding for it to continue and it's only in the planning phase or design phase? Is that how it works?
So do you have a specific project?
Well, let's take, let's take the last one. Hold on.
So to clarify, if the project doesn't have construction funds,
yes,
and the construction is not being funded, we don't put a date.
That's what I was wondering.
Yes, we do show TBD starting at ready to advertise because we don't want to put a date where we think we may get the funding. And if it doesn't happen, then we have to keep pushing it out.
Okay.
So we do put it as TBD. And then once the construction funding comes in, we will update the date. So those projects that went from TBD to be having the date, those projects received construction funding. So we are confident in our dates at that point. But if there's no construction funding, we leave it at TBD.
Okay, that's what I suspected. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Chris, I noticed that, first of all, it's wonderful that we're getting additional funding and congratulations to the grants team. I know writing these grant applications is very involved. They're voluminous. I've seen them. And so it's really great that we can support these projects. I noticed that there's a lot of environmental work going to be going on in the next couple of years. And many of these projects, I think 3 or 4 of them, including the new ones, all have kind of final environmental documents. occurring at the same time, kind of within a 6-month period in 24. So is that work underway? Is that done by various kind of outside consultants? How does SANDAG manage that process?
Yeah, for us to be able to take advantage of all the additional funding that we're able to bring in recently for these projects to go into construction. We have a number of projects that have already completed CEQA, but to be able to use the federal funding that we are now able to access, or be completing NEPA on several projects on the list to get ready for construction. So we'll keep our eligibility open for federal funding as well.
And do each one of these projects have a different environmental consultant working on it, or is there the same group? And are those groups contracted at this point, or they still remain outstanding?
Yeah, we have consultants for all of these projects. We have some in-house assistance that helps us guide through kind of our SANDAG process, but a number of these have the same consultant on I think three or four, and then there are separate consultants for 2 or 3 of the other projects as well.
And in the spirit of expediting some of these projects, I was recently speaking to several legislators, and I do think that it would be worth having a conversation about categorically exempting bikeway projects from CEQA review. And I know that as you talk to our legislative delegation, just wanted to put that out there. It makes a lot of sense to do that. And these are all kind of in infill locations and, typically don't have a lot of environmental impacts. So thank you for your work, Chris.
Yeah, we agree. And just to respond to that, for CEQA, we use a very streamlined process where I think all of our projects so far have been have gotten CEs, except for Robinson had an MND. We're also trying to work with our legislative staff on the NEPA process if we can do a similar streamlining, that would really save a fair amount of time and effort as well. That's yes.
Thank you, Chris.
Duly noted.
Pedro.
2 questions, and I don't know if I don't think they're specific to SANDAG, but maybe you can convey this to the city team. On the Bayshore Bikeway set of projects through Barrio Logan, it looks like a very messy construction site. Just from what I saw, driving it multiple times, to the point that it even concerns me that if I were to be biking in that area, I think I would be a little bit at risk at what is going on over there. So you might want to follow up with the city on it, please.
Yeah, that is our project. So we'll touch base with the construction team. We do have a protected bikeway going through the construction zone, and it's super tight, so things might not look as clean as they would ideally. But I think we're very cognizant of keeping that open and keeping it safe. But I'll make sure to touch base with the construction team to make sure that we have everything buttoned up.
One of the things that I think you're referencing is the city's trunk sewer construction site. And we have been working with the city to try to encourage them to facilitate safer bike access through the region. So we will continue to do that and certainly share your thoughts with the city.
Is this the area, Sharon, between 32nd and Logan Avenue, NASCO? It looks like.
I believe so. Can you confirm, Chris?
Yeah, that is our area.
Oh, that's our area. Okay, so it's not the city's trunk sewer site. Okay.
The city's project is north of Cesar Chavez.
No, this is south.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, Lorraine.
Yeah, Chris, in regards to the compliance for CEQA, if the projects are already cleared, and then kind of queuing up NEPA, is there because that's run through Caltrans, through their local assistance, is there a designation that Caltrans has made as a liaison to help support and streamline the process related to NEPA? Because I know many times there's, just a process that sometimes takes longer through Caltrans. And if we had a designated liaison or task force, so to speak, that would be a little bit more efficient.
We work with our usual local assistants for environmental, Kevin Ovio, and he's always very helpful in helping us make sure we don't do anything extra that we don't need to do to fulfill all the requirements. And so far, I think it's gone pretty well. I mean, it just, NEPA takes time to do all the reports and have all the review and everything. But I mean, like I said before, we're always looking for a way to streamline environmental and NEPA for these bikeway projects.
Yeah, I'm just thinking with all the additional funding, this is going to be a huge push for Caltrans that's already somewhat constrained.
Yeah, we've begun our discussions with them and set out the PES and had our initial meetings. So I think we're in pretty good shape time-wise.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Okay, any other committee comments? No? Okay, so I would like to make a motion to recommend the adjustment presented by staff to the fiscal year 2024 Regional Active Transportation Program.
I'll second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. For real estate right-of-way acquisition, Chair Frankel.
Yes.
Licensed civil traffic engineers absent. For contractor construction, Vice Chair Urso Delgado.
Yes.
For biology environmental, Lorraine Alquist.
Yes.
For finance budgeting, Miriam Babaki.
Yes.
Licensed engineers absent. And for CEO private sector, Sunny House.
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chris. Okay, we'll move on to item number 16, which is the 2023 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, the RTIP Amendment number 5. We're going to hear from Richard Radcliffe. Good morning, Richard.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, ITALK members. So this is the last item on today's agenda, or I guess the second to last. And item 16 is Amendment 5 to the 2023 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or RTIP. On July 28th, the SANDAG Board of Directors is expected to approve Amendment 5. The ITALK is asked to provide feedback on this proposed amendment, focusing its review on the TransNet-funded projects. Amendment 5 is a regular quarterly amendment that's being processed to accommodate changes to projects requested by SANDAG, Caltrans, the member agencies, MTS, and NCTD. Attachment 1, beginning on page 158 of today's agenda, is the summary of changes report showing the prior and revised project cost, the cost difference, and the percent change in each project. This table has been sorted in descending order by the absolute value of the change in dollars. Some significant changes in this amendment include the programming of a $152 million TIRCP cap and trade award on San Diego to Sereno Valley double track, the programming of a $140 million TCEP award for construction on the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry, programming updates based on the FY 2024 SANDAG program budget that was approved on May 12th, 2023, as well as programming updates made by local agencies based on the TransNet revenue forecast that was approved by the board on February 24th, 2023. In attachment 2, beginning on page 169, you'll find the changes proposed in this amendment specifically for the projects funded with TransNet. Each project lists TransNet at the top, followed by any other funding programmed on the project. These tables also show the TransNet subtotals and other subtotals to show you how much TransNet and other funds are programmed. Attachment 3 shows any changes that were made during the public comment period. And then attachment 4A is the TransNet programming analysis, which shows changes in the TransNet LSI and LSI carryover program between this amendment and the previous formal amendment. In this case, the last formal amendment was Amendment 3, which this committee reviewed in May, I believe, for the regional transit CIP. And attachment 4B shows how agencies, the local agencies, are working to program more of their available LSI and their LSI carryover. Attachment 5 summarizes the TransNet eligibility requirements analysis for Amendment 5. And finally, attachment 6 includes any public comments received and responses to those comments. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Thank you so much, Richard. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. We do. The original draw, you can go ahead.
I'd like to, man, I can't talk today. Bring up the importance of bathrooms in, this whole plan. That needs to be incorporated because, you get all this money to spend and we're not doing it on things that are going to this would make your public transit better. People would want to ride it more. People would want to work in that field more if you had bathrooms. And I've told you guys before that you can do that without even spending money. And it's ridiculous that there is always some kind of roadblock to be like, we don't have any money for it, or, they cost too much. And when you can actually find them for free because companies provide them, just like the kiosks, the Wayfinder things that you're like, oh, how are you getting those? You know what I mean? It's like, you'll look for things that are, in a certain realm, but then when they're in another one and you just want to act like it's out of your reach and nobody wants to touch it, like all of these entities that could get all this money, all the people's money could be, doing it. Every single one of them, like every single city could do it. MTS could do it, and CTD, whatever. You guys, the Board of Supervisors, but nobody does it because it's like they want to push it down the pipe to somebody else. When you guys get all this money, and like I've said, you could do it for free because people provide this. They take care of it's out front and J. DeSau street furniture. They manage and maintain it, and then you guys put ads on it. So it is not out of reach, but I don't see in any plans like in the future for any kind of bathrooms to come down the pipe. And, we throw around money and all of this stuff. And this is something that, like, you guys have a bathroom where you're at. I have one where I'm at. And, people should be provided that if you want them to use public transit and walk everywhere and bike everywhere. It's like, you got to provide, the basic necessities, but that just doesn't seem to happen. So it would be really great if you guys would do that for the people that are working there, that are taking the transit. Instead of just making excuses as to why it can't ever happen. Look into it and actually do something about it instead of like, acting like it's out of your hands. Somebody needs to do something. That's it.
That concludes the public comments.
Thank you. We'll bring it back to committee members for questions or comments from Mr. Radcliffe.
Clarification. On the summary, you talk about the programming of 140 million cycle 3 award for construction of Otay Mesa East Port of Entry. I look at the summary of changes report sheet and I see a cost difference of 54,801,000 with a TransNet change of 25,001. Where is the 140 in that equation, or is it even there?
Thank you for your question. It is there. It's likely, I'm trying to look for it now in the table for the project. If you look at page 257 of the agenda, you can see the project tables for its MPO ID V11. And I believe that 140 million is actually replacing another fund source that was previously programmed. I believe it was local funds is what it looks like.
So we had local funds as kind of a placeholder. for the funds that we knew were going to be coming in. So it's kind of displaced the local funds that are in there. So the project itself that was programmed will not increase by the 140. It will replace some of the local funds that were a placeholder for those funds.
Yeah, to add on to what Michelle is saying, it's basically what you're seeing on the change summary is factoring in the increases as well as decreases to the various fund sources on the project. So the overall project cost, I think you said it increased by 54 million.
Yes.
But that's because there were reductions in other fund sources that's why you're not seeing an increase of 140 million.
See.
But if you look at the table for V11, in the lower portion, you can see that it was last amended in Amendment 1 that was approved in January. And you can see there's 195 million of local funds in 22-23. And that's now been reduced to 55 million in fiscal year 25. And you can see that in 24, there's that 140 million of the TCEP.
Is there a way to make this easier? I feel like you have to go here, there, and there, and then there. And then, oh, that's the answer.
I feel the same way.
Wait, you're the creator. Never mind.
Other comments, Sunny? Yes.
I have a question on attachment for A and for B, and I brought this up last time as well, is the San Diego County high balance. They have one of the highest balances, about 50 million or 45 million for the next 5 years. So is there any explanation or maybe an update on how this is going to actually get programmed? Or why?
I was able to talk about it with someone from the county. They've had a little bit of turnover there with respect to the people who are doing the programming there, but they intend to participate in either the next admin amendment or the next formal RTIP amendment to get that taken care of.
Awesome. And when is that expected?
We have the next admin amendment opens next month. And if there's TransNet funded projects, it will come before this committee in October. And then failing that, they would participate in the formal amendment that I believe opens in October with January approval.
Okay, thank you, Richard.
Similarly, Richard, I noticed that the city of San Diego has overprogrammed their balance. And so are they, why does that occur? And do we speak with them? Is there any kind of other information about why?
So yeah, basically, sort of like with the county, they intend to participate in the next, I was emailing yesterday with one of their representatives there trying to, excuse me, get them into this upcoming administrative amendment. Basically, I was told that they didn't have time to update their programming in response to the revenue estimates. And so that's why there's still this negative balance that was still there in the previous amendment prior to getting the updated revenue. So they plan on taking care of that at the next opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, other questions or comments for Richard? No? Okay. Well, this is just a discussion item. So that concludes this item. Thank you so much, Richard, for bringing this forward. Okay, and that does conclude our report items on the agenda today. Item 17 is our future meeting schedule. As has been our practice, we will not be meeting next month. So our next meeting will be September 13th here at 9:30 a.m.
Chair, go ahead.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
just have some updates when.
That's what I was going to ask.
Okay, yes, we do have some updates.
Thank you, Michelle. Go ahead.
So for updates on the next ITALK member, it did go through the technical screening committee. And so two of the, well, both of them, I guess I should say, applicants were approved to move forward to the selection committee. So we are working with staff right now to schedule that selection committee. As you know, it is kind of difficult with all the members who need to be there. So I think that we are still working with a couple of members who need to attend. So hopefully we should be doing that sometime in August. And we will bring you back an update in September. If we don't have a new member by then, hopefully we will. Also, to follow up on your question on the purple line, there's currently no TransNet on that project at this point. There's just federal formula funds. And then just to clarify, for the next board meeting. The update for the airport will be on the last board meeting of the month, not this Friday, and 2 weeks Friday. I think we had, yes, thank you. And I think those are all the updates. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Michelle, okay with that, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.